You ever get that feeling? You start a new habit, you're full of motivation, and then a few weeks later, poof, it's gone. If you've ever thought, man, maybe I just don't have enough willpower, I have some really good news for you. Today, we're going to dive into the science of what actually makes habits stick. Okay, so let's just ask the big question right up front. Why is it so incredibly hard to make a new habit stick? You know the drill. You start a new workout, a new diet, a new morning routine, and then life happens and it just fades away. What is really going on there? And here is the most important thing I want you to hear right from the start. This is not a personal failing. Seriously, it's not about being weak or lazy or undisciplined. It's about using the wrong strategy, one that actually fights against your brain's biology instead of, working with it. So let's begin by just clearing the air and debunking one of the biggest myths in the entire world of self-improvement. It's a piece of advice that has, honestly, set so many of us up for failure. I mean, you've heard this a million times, right? Just grind it out for 3 weeks and you're golden. But this idea, as popular as it is just not backed up by the data. And believing it can make you feel like a total failure on day 22 when that new habit still feels like a massive chore. So what does the science actually tell us? Well, a 2010 study looked at how long it took people to form a simple habit, something like taking a walk after dinner. And what's wild is that the results were all over the place, from just over 2 weeks to more than 8 months. The takeaway here is huge. Habit formation is personal. It's variable. There is no magic number. The real reason it's so difficult has nothing to do with a number on a calendar. It is rooted deep in our neurobiology. There's a very real, measurable force inside your brain that actively, and I mean actively, resists change. And this concept, right here, this changes everything. It's a term that neuroscientist Andrew Huberman uses to describe that feeling of resistance we all know so well. So let's break down exactly what this limbic friction is. Think of it like this. To get a car moving from a dead stop, you got to press the gas harder than when you're already cruising down the highway, right? Well, limbic friction is that initial push. It's the mental effort you have to exert to overcome your brain's natural preference for doing what's easy and what's familiar. And this illustrates the two main ways we feel it. Sometimes you're too revved up. You're anxious, your mind is racing, you're scattered, and you can't possibly sit down and meditate. Other times, you're totally revved down. You're tired, unmotivated, glued to the couch, and there's no way you're getting up for a run. Both of these states are just forms of high limbic friction. Okay, so if limbic friction is the enemy, how do we defeat it? Well, the answer isn't to just grit your teeth and try harder, it's to be smarter. It's about aligning our efforts with our brain's natural daily rhythm. And this gives us a powerful 24-hour framework for success. This table right here, this is the whole strategy. In those first 8 hours after you wake up, your brain is flooded with chemicals like dopamine and norepinephrine that are absolutely perfect for focus and for action. This is your prime time. This is your window to tackle the hardest, highest friction habits. Then, later in the day, as serotonin rises, you're way better suited for calmer, lower friction tasks. And phase 3, sleep, that is non-negotiable. That is when your brain actually does the work of rewiring itself to make those habits stick. And you can actually support each phase. Get some morning sunlight to really maximize that phase 1 alertness. Use calming rituals, like dimming the lights, to transition into phase 2. And you have to protect your sleep at all costs, because without phase 3, all that effort you put in during the day, it just doesn't get locked in. All right, so now that we have our daily framework, let's add 2 incredibly powerful mental tools that work like force multipliers. They make this whole system even more effective. The first tool is so simple, but it is shockingly powerful. It's basically a way to mentally rehearse a new habit, to trick your brain into thinking it's already familiar. And what does that do? It dramatically lowers the limbic friction you need to overcome to get started. Now, the key here, the real secret, is the detail. Don't just picture yourself at the gym. Picture yourself putting on your shoes, grabbing your keys, driving there, walking through the door, doing that first set. This mental walkthrough activates the very same neural circuits you'll use for the real behavior, which makes it feel less scary, less foreign, and a whole lot easier to start when the time comes. Okay, our second tool is all about hacking the neuroscience of motivation itself, and it involves totally rethinking our relationship with one of the most famous chemicals in our brain, dopamine. This is a game-changing insight. We always think of dopamine as the pleasure molecule, the reward we get after we do something.
but its main job is to drive us towards a goal. It's the molecule of wanting, of pursuit, of motivation.
And this right here shows us exactly how to use that knowledge. Instead of just waiting for the reward at the very end, you can actually train your brain to release dopamine for the effort itself. Start telling yourself things like, I'm the kind of person who leans into hard things, or I love the feeling of starting this workout. By subjectively rewarding the process, you attach that dopamine hit to the entire habit, not just the finish line.
So here it is. This is your new playbook. First, forget the arbitrary timelines. Second, understand that you're fighting a real biological force called limbic friction. Third, schedule your hardest habits for your most energetic morning hours. Fourth, prime your brain with visualization. And finally, learn to love the process, not just the prize. This framework isn't just theory, it's a practical, science-backed plan that you can literally start using tomorrow. So the only question left is, what high-friction habit are you going to conquer tomorrow morning during your biological prime time?